Welcome back to Obscure Gaming, where I am in awe of the new intro that Nico made for this segment. I think it's really pretty, to the point where I felt compelled to talk about this one game specifically, despite the fact that this game is very confusing and hurtful towards me. But it felt right. And so today on Obscure Gaming, we'll be going over The Legend of Zelda The Minish Cap for the NES, otherwise known as Zelda Shen Kui de Mao Zi. I apologize for mispronouncing that probably. But some may contest that Minish Cap wasn't actually for the NES, though I put forth that this is a Chinese bootleg, a demake of sorts. Sorts being a key word here because it's not exactly like Minish Cap, and it's kind of a turn-based RPG. So something went horribly wrong at some point, and we're gonna go over all the wrongness after we discuss the game's rich story, which to my dismay features no broken English. If I gave points, I would remove them immediately. Now the game opens up with a picture that they stole from Minish Cap's opening, with text that they added. Said text, I'm assuming that while it's not in English, it's probably just reiterating the same stuff that's said in the actual intro of Minish Cap. And after the lovely picture, Zelda with black hair comes over to your poorly designed house thing with 4 windows on the top. I'm not even sure how that works. But she goes ahead and lets herself in because she's a princess and she can do these things, and begins having a conversation with Smith, who is cleverly disguised as this garden gnome. Now Zelda came over to come and get Link so that the two may go to the Picori Festival together. And so you're woken up off-screen and dragged into the room with your hat already acquired, which means we're following the source material very closely. But much like in the GBA version of the game, Zelda wants you to follow her to the town, and considering every other exit here is sealed off with boulders, you don't really have much of a choice. And so, after a short stroll through a portion of Hyrule that somebody just decided to give up on, you arrive at the town's festival. And what a lively, non-existent festival it is, inhabited by sprites that totally aren't from the Pokemon games, and this lovely empty space in the middle of it. It's great. Though in a nod to continuity, Zelda is easily distracted and starts walking into every dangerous thing she sees. In this case, a mysterious stranger that I don't recognize, talking to said person for a little bit before running off into danger, yet again, 2 screens over at what is supposed to be the sword ceremony area. You talk to the minister, Zelda goes inside to get ready for the festivities, and emerges with the world's saddest king and the blade, so that the champion Vati may receive it, but unfortunately, he's a bastard and didn't show up and sent this other spiky-haired dude instead, and this dude makes everyone disappear except for black-haired Zelda, before making the blade vanish, and shading Zelda over with a pencil, being the monster he is. You awaken at the castle and are informed of the situation because everyone knows what happened despite none of them being there. And so Link sets off on his journey to save Zelda and do pretty much all the main things you would do in actual Minish Cap, only with alterations, like already having your hat, despite the fact that when you go over to Minish Woods, you do encounter a scene similar to that one where you save your hat in the actual game, only it's just some dude this time, and then after you save the dude, he walks into you and fuses with you. Which I'm not sure how I feel about that, but we're starting to dip into gameplay here, so I might as well segue into that section. Now of course, you take control of young bootlegged Link and Weird Hat Man, and travel across Hyrule, all while encountering frequent random battles and hitting up locations that sort of look like memorable places, or like someone ripped memorable places out of some other place and put them here instead, and they look super out of place. Like Lon Lon Ranch, for example, so good job, you guys. Don't get too explore happy though, as the game literally gates you off at every turn with magical boulders. To which a Zelda fan might respond with, well, why not blow those up with bombs? Aren't those in the game? And of course they are. You can buy them, you're just not allowed to use them outside of battle. Because that would be ridiculous and entertaining, and it would make far too much sense. That's not what this game is about, clearly. What it is about is a lot of random battles, and since you'll run into a bunch on the way to your first plot point, I may as well go over those right now. Now at a first glance, it may not seem that bad. The HUD looks okay, Link is passable, though not nearly as cute as he is in actual Minish Cap. The enemies look like they were ripped directly from Minish Cap, so that's a good sign. Your options in combat are a standard attack, use an item, run away, and of course, magic spells. Because as everyone knows, Link is a magician, though you're only armed with one spell to start the game off with, and that's a healing spell, something you'll need as you get ganged up on and screwed over pretty much constantly. As the game more often than not likes to put you up against two enemies while you're stuck with just Link, and Nobody teams up with you. Not even the weird hat guy living inside you. Grandpa doesn't help, and Zelda, aka Fancy New Statue, is busy being a statue, so that's all disappointing and makes things more difficult than they really have to be. Not to mention every battle goes on far too long. But of course, the game is clearly not difficult enough as it is, which is why all of the enemies in the game scale to either your level or one just above it or possibly just below. Either way, they end up dealing more attack damage than you will, making the only benefit to leveling up your character being some okay-ish spells for Link to use. Mind you, he's a bad shot with everything, including his healing spells, so he'll miss a lot. I've died from that, by the way, a lot. So combat, one of my favorite aspects of the Zelda games, is shot. But surely the game must make up for it with its amazing dungeons and puzzles, right? You say with hopefulness? And no. When I entered the first dungeon, I was thoroughly unimpressed. Mostly because it's a single room with no puzzles, and an exit to another room where the boss is hanging out, but still frequent random encounters in between, to help keep the great atmosphere going and stuff. Anyways, when you walk into the second room, the boss is just there, waiting for you. In this case, it's the mini-boss of the first dungeon of actual Minish Cap, and not the actual first boss, although they did use him, they just moved him to the third boss, or wait, the third dungeon of this game. This game isn't good and it's confusing me. But that's pretty much every significant quote-unquote dungeon in the game. You walk into a room that kind of looks like the dungeon a little bit. If you squint your eyes, then you walk into another room with a giant dude just hanging out waiting for you. You walk up to him and fight, and that's it. No legitimate puzzles at all. The closest thing that the game gets to a puzzle is, hey, there's this blocked path, but there's two buttons in front of you. Gee, I wonder what would happen if you press them. And of course, the massive land vanishes into thin air. Puzzle solved. There was one other puzzle where I had to make a bridge using only 2 switches, and I pulled that one off too, somehow. Honestly, the biggest quote-unquote puzzle in the game is the game itself. Trying to figure out how to get into new areas and actually advance the plot, because the game doesn't really make it that obvious. What it wants you to do is follow the main Minish Cap plot in order, hence why there's a ton of locations blocked off, because if they weren't blocked off, you could finish the game in a couple of minutes, and that would be great. Which would be the only good thing about this game, and they wouldn't want that. But in order to remove all these rocks placed around the world, you need to not only perform the tasks to advance the story in order, but also talk to random NPCs for some reason. As an example, after the quote-unquote second dungeon, which looks terrible, I of course wanted to head over to the third dungeon, but you need the Pegasus boots in order to get there. However, you get the boots from a quest in the actual game, and there's no such quest in this version of the game. Knowing this, I just went ahead and tried to enter the area, found the entrance for it, and the game wouldn't let me in. It would give me this little message, but it wouldn't let me in. So I, of course, wandered around for hours until ending up back in the first town, where I talked to this guy who decided that I suddenly had boots now. And then I could enter the area and experience more of this wonderful game. Woohoo! Really, when it gets right down to it, this just isn't a very fun game to play. It's slow, tedious, and annoyingly linear. And you'd think, if nothing else at this point, the game can't get any worse, right? And yes it can. Let's move on to the presentation, starting with the audio, where it gets really worse. Now, of course, there's no voice acting or any other sound effects, really, but they did manage to squeeze a resounding 2, maybe 3 songs total into the game, one of which plays almost constantly, looping, and it never stops. Here, I'll give you a little listen. Now imagine if that played for the entire game. It's not even a good version of the song. Also, Pokemon music is bad Zelda music. I understand why it was used. The developer who made this also made a number of Pokemon games, but you stole music for that game, you can steal it for this one too, guys. There are no other sounds to speak of, it's just that music. As for the visuals, yeah, at first I didn't think the game would look that bad. You know, I thought it would look okay. The first area looks decent-ish. It's green, you know. But as soon as you leave that screen to move towards any other screen, the world just falls into disarray and is overtaken by all these blocky structures, square ponds, and some stuff that they actually did take from Minish Cap, so I guess I should give them credit, although they put it in weird spots like these little trees and the tiny bushes and stumps that you would use to turn into tiny little Link, but that doesn't work in this version of the game because they removed that. But outside of any assets that they took directly from Minish Cap, the game just looks awful. Even Link doesn't look that good. He refuses to move his legs and just slides everywhere, but he's totally okay with flailing his arms about. Also, his hair just isn't doing anything for me. But that's The Legend of Zelda The Minish Cap for the NES, a game I played until the very end because I'm foolish. Now, I think it's safe to not recommend this game to any of you. Even if you're very intrigued, it's not worth it. To be honest, you'd be better off just playing actual Minish Cap, which I actually started doing a playthrough again recently and had forgotten how great it is. So go play that, but not this. And this has been Obscure Gaming. Thank you for watching. Hey guys, welcome back to Endslate, where I am especially sleepy, but very happy that I don't have to play this game ever again. I hope you guys enjoyed the new Obscure Gaming on the Minish Cap bootleg. I could have done a topic that would have been more fun, a couple topics that would have been more fun actually, but I thought this one would have been better to, I don't know, use the new intro for. In my head it made sense, I don't know. I hope you guys enjoyed it though, and thank you Nico for the awesome intro. I love it. I think it's great. But yeah, Endslate things, I guess. If I was good at doing Endslate, I'd probably tell you guys that I'd have a gameplay channel and do Let's Plays, but I'm not good at that, so we'll do that some other time. Oh, I know, Endslate. I'll recommend the last video I did on this channel, which was a bullshit creepypasta storytime on, gonna look it up, Pokemon blank. That's bland. Pokemon bland. That was a stupid story. That got deleted within a couple of minutes. And then the other two videos are gonna be two other videos that you can click on if you want to, or something. And then at the bottom of the screen there's me messing up words, but then there's also at the bottom of the screen there's social media stuff for Nico, who did the art and also the intro, and you can follow him, and you should. And then there's my stuff in my Facebook, which I use every once in a while, and my Twitter, which that's great to post pictures for Kamen Rider and stuff. So there's that. And then, as always, if you like the video and you want to like it or share it or subscribe, that's very thoughtful and I appreciate it and it helps, but I'm not gonna beg you to do it or put up a weird annotation that's in large font and stuff. So, not today at least, but I don't like using annotations. I'm lazy. That's the end of Endslate. Yeah, I don't know, annotations. See you guys next time on Endslate.